As a really successful business person myself, I am really excited for what India has in store for the international community. India is known to be a land of ideas. Entrepreneurship has resided in our cultural code for years, from a local chaiwala to the high-flying corporate tycoon. It is this spirit of innovation and business acumen that has kept us ahead of the curve against all odds, and that is exactly what our next session is about to highlight. In this panel, we have with us stalwarts from the Indian startup community who have been investing billions in this opportunity called India. So join me in inviting our moderator, M.R. Rangaswamy, founder and chairman of the board, Indiaspora, along with our panelists, Sudhir Sethi, founder and chairman, Charate Ventures, and Narain Gupta, co-founder, Nexus Venture Partners. Over to you, M.R.
Hello, everyone. This is M.R. Rangaswamy with Indiaspora. I'm really pleased to be on the ThinkIndia show today with two incredibly successful and savvy investors in the Indian markets. Sudhir Sethi, who's joining us from India with Charate Ventures, and Narain Gupta with Nexus Ventures, and he's joining us here from the Bay Area. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Amar.
Thank you, Amar.
So I just want to start. I've been visiting India for the past, 15 years from the Bay Area. I was involved very much with NASSCOM and their product conclave. You guys have been involved with that as well. Every year bringing delegations of people like Narain and others to India to inspire, to do workshops and such. And I've seen that ecosystem grow from a few hundred people to this past 2 years ago, 2,500 entrepreneurs, right? So we've seen this incredible growth of the ecosystem, investors, founders, entrepreneurs, and such. Really want to get from you, both of you, your take on what has happened in the past decade that has set up India for the future. So who wants to go first? Don't be shy.
All right, Amar, I will go first. So last decade, I would say has been a preparation of groundwork and certainly a number of successes for what is to come. So I see the 2000s as the crawl phase. India was trying to figure out what to do. 2010 to 2020 as a walk phase. And now we are off to the races in this decade. Now, what has happened in the last 10 years is certainly a few successes, remarkable successes that nobody imagined before. But most importantly, we have built an infrastructure where that success is possible. Now, what does that infrastructure mean? Maybe I'll just quickly say three things. First thing is having the right kind of advisors, lawyers, accountants, your board members who can really help these companies, help these young entrepreneurs do the best they can. Second thing, which we believe ultimately has transformed India, is bring the learnings from Silicon Valley, certainly. Very important because we are obviously the leader in creating technology companies, global technology companies. And third thing is access to capital. So we have created an incredible groundwork. Yes, we have had a lot of successes. I think in the tech space, if you look at it, last 10 years, we have probably created enterprise value of between $50 to $100 billion, something of that order. Clearly led by Freshworks and Postman, which together probably account for $20 or $25 billion of valuation. So we are ready to run the race.
Fantastic. Sudhir, I know you're sitting out in India. What's your perspective on what has happened?
Well, just to add to what Naren said, and I think let me just give some numbers and then I'll come to the contextual part. And I won't go as far back as 10 years back because that's like prehistoric times. Let me go back 6 to 7 years back. Though I started investing in 98 in India. In the last 6, 7 years, India has absorbed $200 billion worth of PE VC capital. And we believe that based on what is happening right now, in the next 6 years or so, India will absorb about 500 billion. This is our estimate. And why do we think that will happen? A, there is enormous amount of risk appetite in entrepreneurs, and that's a very big change, right? India has now entrepreneurs who are leaving established companies because they think there are challenges in business which can be solved, and they know how to solve it using technology. And I must say technology is very, very important. And they believe that if they solve it outside the standard ecosystem, they will create additional value, they will unlock value. I think that's a very big thing. There is the whole issue of the entrepreneur becoming audacious and thinking that there is subscale which was there yesterday and there is scale and super scale there today. I think that's a very big mindset change. The other thing is that I would say about 40 to 50% of the companies which we are seeing today have already taken a step to go global. And that's also very important because Indian entrepreneurs, and if you see IT services, 10 years back, they were already going global 100%. So entrepreneurs in the product field, in the consumer field, in health tech, any business challenge of scale which can be solved in India has a market globally. So that's the third area. The fourth is predictive policies, enormous push by the government. I think that's very, very important at the end of the day, including sovereign fund of funds, which are anchoring right now possibly almost 75 funds in the country overall. And last but not the least, which I think is perhaps not known, is the India stack. India stack consisting of UPI, consisting of a whole lot of other instruments which enable entrepreneurs to build companies without building the fintech infrastructure, the security infrastructure again and again, is a massive game changer. And these are just, tectonic shifts which have taken place in a very short time.
Excellent, excellent. So I got to tell you this. We had Rakesh Jhunjhunwala on a show a few months ago, and he was so bullish on India. He's like, put every dollar you have into India. And at that time, Sensex was at 45,000, right? Now Sensex has hit an all-time high again and again every day of 60,000. I mean, so things are happening in India with valuations of the local markets. The second thing is the IPOs. You had Zomato go public in India. You had Freshworks go public in the US. You have Paytm and other companies, Oyo starting to list in India. Many more IPOs to come in the US. 3 unicorns being created every month. I mean, it seems like Naren and I need to move back to India. It's that exciting. I think we'll be on the next flight home to join you, Sudhir. But Naren, tell us a little bit. I know looking at it, the valuations are high, exits are great. So what do you make of today's situation in India?
Regarding the valuations, MR, investors are fundamentally investing for the future. And certainly valuations look high today based on today's numbers, today's financials. But all of us are betting that the future is going to bring about tremendous growth. And we have seen, other investors also have seen, our companies getting funded at what seemed like out-of-line valuations. And a year later, it feels the new investors got a very, very good bargain. So what it indicates, the high valuation indicates, is investors' confidence in the future of India and particularly Indian startup ecosystem. Time will tell. Now, some of it is driven by low interest rates and too much liquidity in the global markets. But a lot of it is also driven by the fundamental belief that India is off to the races.
Great. And Sudhir, you mentioned 200 billion has gone into India in the past 6-7 years. 500 billion more is coming. Where is it going and how is it being utilized? How do you see that play out?
So, very important. I think you mentioned this, and in the context of what's happened in the US, and again, I must add that both Naren and MR will be most welcome to come back to India. There is enormous place here, at a leadership level for you. So please come. I think the first thing which we need to do is we need to see that today the market cap of the Indian stock market has just crossed the GDP. Okay, and that's 3 trillion plus. That's sort of not happened before. I think that's a turning point, and the reason is because new economy companies are going public. It's not the old economy companies. Most important to note is that the technology sector, which is broadly IT services, is about 10 to 11% of India's GDP right now. It used to be 2 years back 8%, whereas the top 15 technology companies in the US are 40% of US GDP, and they used to be 15% of US GDP 5 years ago. So if you look at that, and if you look at the trajectory of what kind of companies are going to come into the Indian market, a bulk of the companies, leave aside LIC and leave aside some of the other public sector companies, a bulk of the market cap which is going to be created, which is already seen in the list of IPOs which is happening, is from the new economy companies. And new economy companies are now dominant. We have companies like FirstCry, Lenskart, Policy Bazaar, CureFit. These are dominant companies who have now gone ahead of the old economy companies. And to that extent, their valuation is high because A, they are dominant, they are sustainable, and I must add that during the post-COVID timeframe, they not only grew faster, but they were using capital significantly higher and better efficiently. They're not burning much. So you will find highly valuable companies which are sustainable over a long period of time as going concerns coming up, which will be valued significantly higher than the current companies. So with that in market, I go back to what Naren said, that there is a long-term play here. There is capital both from international and most important from India. The amount of rupee capital, it's more than $2 trillion equivalent in the family wealth in India is just amazing. That used to be in earlier public markets, in real estate and so on and so forth, which is now coming to alternative assets. And that's why we believe that today something like 5 to 6% of the investments in India in PE/VC are Indian rupee capital. We believe in the next 6 to 7 years, they'll go to 25%. That's a big change, like it happened in China, which happens to be about 50%.
Oh, this is all.
Comment, Emma, if you, I think, I don't think you and I need to move to India. I don't believe that. Anyway, you're doing a great service, MR, to India by being here and helping run this kind of session, transferring the know-how in the US to India. And certainly for me, I would say my colleagues are a lot smarter than I am, a lot more energy than I have. Samir and Suvir, Anup, all of them, they are remarkable people. So I believe the model for the firm, for the future in the tech for India is a bi-coastal. And of course, a lot of other firms are now copying our model as well, which is great because we'll create a good ecosystem. But I'm not sure that you are going to succeed in a big way. This is my personal opinion. We started that way, and we believe, the Times Group is doing that, of course, has done that last 5 years. So I believe that it's more about having the Indian mindset than being physically in India.
Absolutely, Naren. I was just saying that tongue in cheek. I'm not moving from San Francisco and don't intend to. But I'm with you with
what you do, MR. So please don't move.
Yeah, but with now Zoom and this product, Blue Jeans, and all these things. I mean, we're together like we're in our own living rooms, and we can kind of share this knowledge transfer, the wealth transfer, the money, and so on and so forth. So let me point to the next thing, question for you guys, and that is, in the past, it looked like a lot of the Indian companies that got started, in a sense, I don't want to be derogatory, but they looked like Me Too companies. There was a US company doing extremely well. We'll do the same thing in India, right? And if you look at a lot of the companies coming out now, that's kind of been the case. But now I see a new set of companies emerging that are, and I want to pick one from each one of your portfolios so that we can describe what this opportunity is for the world. And in your case, Naren, I want to pick on Postman, right? here's a company, a small fledgling company that's now become extremely successful, that in the recent round was a $5.5 billion valuation. And people are saying, hey, that's 100 times sales. Is that worth it? But then underlying that are 15 million developers who use the product. And so you got to look at this opportunity very differently than just revenue. Walk us through the Postman and what you see and as its success and where can it go?
Well, the Postman, they have about 18 million users every month or developers. And the goal Postman has, maybe I'll start backwards, is to get people who are not traditional programmers to write applications. If we don't do that, our economy, which is software-driven, software-based, will just come to a halt. We cannot create 100 million C++ programmers, but we can bring technology to bear such that 100 million people are able to write functional, production-oriented applications. And that's sort of the basic thesis for it. The thing we could do in India that is very difficult to do where India has a real advantage is we funded the company first time seed 2015, and then we did Series A. We were the only investor in Series A because most investors didn't understand the power of what was being created. And the thing we can do in India is we took the view that build the right product. We took first 3 years, 4 years. We really had zero sales. People wanted to send us purchase orders. We basically would not accept the purchase order. Every purchase order comes with obligations. And then once we had it right, and the cost was low, obviously, during those 4 years. India has a real advantage. We had 25% team. Maybe the cost was a few $1 million a year. And at that point, once we had the product right, we could really go to the races. And the last 2.5 years, they've raised 3 rounds. First round was done at 10x at the price we paid. Second round was more than 10x. And clearly, and the advantage for us as an investor is that, which is something I'll say that people don't really know, is we still own 25% of Postman. The company hasn't raised much money. And, we have small, modest funds. So I think that is kind of the model we can run in India. We have another company in the education space that people don't know about, someday they will, is Quizzes. It has 80 million users, around students using it every month. 80 million users. Until 9 months ago, we had zero revenue. Now we are close to $10 million run rate in revenue, very profitable because the company only had 25 employees in India. So I think that is the advantage. India's advantage is to address long-term markets where product has to be right. Opening up new markets often requires you to understand the product. Nobody has told you the game plan. And that is something we can do very effectively in India. By the way, MR, I would say the Me Too models work, but they have their fundamental limit. Because, I have said before, the idea that, hey, I'm going to provide you something that X is doing in the US that I said it at half the price is not really a long-term working model because a company in the US can also lower the price. So we take the view, we don't fund any company where the only competitive advantage is price. We fund companies.
Good to know. And Sudhir, coming to you, both you guys have so many unicorns in your portfolio. I wish I was a limited partner in your funds. And you have companies like Policy Bazaar and many others. Walk us through one of these deals and why that company is so different and unique and you think they're valued the way they are.
So maybe I can just take a slightly different view, MR, if you permit me. I think this Me Too is a natural. The top 3 global economies which are contiguous in nature, and I will just say top 4, let's say Europe is like one multinational country like India. E-commerce is a given. There has to be e-commerce in the country. So we went after the vertical model more than the horizontal model. And because it was higher margin, at that point of time, the flow of capital was poor in the country. And we could sustain ourselves. So we helped back FirstCry, which is now perhaps the largest, maybe the second largest baby care e-commerce company in the world. And it's just moved into Middle East, which means the best is still yet to come. And these are revenue scales which are more than $500 million a year. We have In shipment terms, the world's largest eyewear company called Lenskart shipped out 15, 20,000 a month, a day, which means they are the largest in the world. We have Policy Bazaar in terms of insurance provided over $150 billion. And we have CureFit, which is the largest in health and fitness in the country. And the list goes on. So to me Too models are there to stay. Why? Because there's a market for it. And I think they are more technology oriented overall. Secondly, what happens is there is this whole notion that global players will enter India. I think global players will enter India only in the horizontals, not the verticals. If you look at today, in the last 10 years, the verticals which I mentioned, FirstCry, and so if any company who wishes to now enter India, right, the biggest barrier is FirstCry. It will take billions of dollars to enter India. Lenskart, it will take billions of dollars. These companies are now going global and becoming the number one in the globe today. That is the context. And I think the context is India gives you, in the Me Too models, a local market which has taken 10 years to grow to a national level, and then now they are going global. So you will find those models emerge. As far as very, very unique to India, that is our second thesis. And our second thesis is very important. The second thesis is there are business challenges in India, there are societal challenges in India, which have not been solved for 50 years. So let me give you two examples. One, we have over 1 billion people who need extremely efficient healthcare. Traditional models of building hospitals and clinics cannot solve that. It's only technology which can solve that. So we've studied now the whole space of cancer, the whole space of oral healthcare, the whole space of oncology, fitness, nutrition, and now we have pieced it together into a model which is prevention, diagnostics, therapy, rehab, and medicine. So we're building companies in each of these spaces because we believe that there is a market out there. And today you see these companies emerging, they're getting large. And some of these will there are partners who are seeking their cooperation, at least in the geographies around it. Every single one of these companies is a potential large company. So that's one example because the market is so large. And that's very unique. No healthcare company from US can come to India. I can guarantee you that because they don't know what's happening, right? And second thing is agriculture. Please understand there are 150 million farmers whose average holding is 2 acres of land. Now, how do you improve, right, through the Western model, productivity of a farmer? How do you improve income, which is not very big right now? It's about 1 lakh rupees a year. And how do you improve soil productivity? How do you do disease management? How do you do water management? That can be done by technology. So I'll give you an example of one of our companies called Cropin. Cropin is today managing 13 million acres of land through satellite imagery. And its ambition is to grow to 300 million acres, 50% in India and 50% outside India through satellite imagery. It's a very unique model. Okay. It is using extensively detailed technology and providing that to input providers to build one of the world's largest agri-tech companies, which has never been seen before. Now, that's an example of what can happen in India, and we're seeing the traction already. This is the second layer, solving real challenges. The third layer is what I call personally audacious. There are these young companies. I'll give you a very simple example. There's a company called Emotix. It is one of the world's few AI-based consumer companion robotic companies, right? And it is already on a scale to become a $100 million company. And by the way, the bulk of the market is US. It's a consumer company. There's a company called KB Cole, whose goal is to replace color, which is chemical in nature, and it is extracting color out of bacteria as such. These are very different. They are global. There are only a couple of companies in the world who do this, and these guys are now taking the lead in the world. So I think there are 3 layers. Each has to be looked at in their own merit, and all are scaling. India provides that platform.
Great. Naren, I want to come back to you. One of your unique value propositions at Nexus has been in the enterprise space when you're able to bring companies to the US, because the biggest market for enterprise software is the United States. Can you talk us through that and how that has been helpful to some of these companies becoming unicorns and going global?
Yeah, so I think the bringing to the US, a lot of people think as hiring some salespeople in the US, and it is far from that. It is far from that. So our view has been that you want to bring the Indian technology expertise and combine that with the product management expertise we have in the US. So our typical process, if you can say like company like Druva, when we funded it, they were based in Pune, great team. We suggested to them that they move to the US. We helped them find initial employees. We helped them with the legal stuff to get situated in the US. But most importantly, we gave them comfort that we are working with them side by side every day to really create the US entity. My colleague Jishnu, who is on the board, spent hours with them early with Jaspreet, who is the CEO. We also pushed them to bring in one of the founders. The youngest founder became the CEO because he could really get used to the US culture a lot more readily. Other founders are great as well, but we pushed that change, if you want, or we suggested that change. So it's a combination of bringing them physically here, changing the culture of the company, and helping build the initial organization and providing them comfort that if something goes wrong, we are here to help. And I think the Indian entrepreneurs, we still lack a product management expertise. And that is something I believe you can only get, unfortunately, I would say today, only in the US. And there's now when you make Me Too models, you don't need product management expertise because you are simply copying somebody. I say, but when you are building companies that are unique and opening up new markets, like Druva opened up a whole new market, that requires you to be working side by side with them as they transition to the US. It's not a physical move, it's a psychological and cultural move.
Right.
That is the hardest part of changing companies.
And you've done this time and time again. Postman is now in the US. There's so many companies coming over, right? That's another trend that I'm seeing. And turning over to you, Sudhir. I mean, you talked about the opportunities in India and stuff. So in general, I want to kind of move the conversation more to, you said there's been policy changes in India, all for the good and so forth. What else needs to be done in India, you think, in terms of regulations and otherwise, to set it up for the next decade?
So I think the biggest issue, there is no showstopper right now. Let me put it this way. I think it's very important. There may be some smaller and niggling issues, but there are no showstoppers. With India, maybe not in 25, but 26 or 27, achieving 5 trillion in terms of GDP and going up to 4,600, 4,700 as per capita income, which is doubling that from now. It's a massive market. I think that massive market is now having a policy framework which is very, very positive. One thing which I do believe will be very important is, from a taxation point of view, Indian rupee capital is taxed more for the alternative assets than dollar capital. I think that is something which it is very, very important to bring it at par and make sure that more rupee capital comes. If Indians take more risk in new economy companies, you will find additional leveraged capital, 1:5 to 1:10 coming from international. That, I believe, is the biggest thing, which from a policy point of view is very, very important. And the faster that is done, the better it is.
And I agree. I think now with local IPOs seeing such great interest, like Zomato and Paytm and Oyo, all these coming up, I think there's enough pent-up demand in India to take risk. So talking about risk, we can't leave the session without talking about the favorite thing everybody talks about these days is crypto. So Naren, any thoughts on crypto? India being in, China has banned crypto now, right? And said there's no crypto. US is looking at regulations. India is looking at stuff. So what is your take on crypto and its use in India and stuff?
So I think you can divide the crypto into two parts, the crypto technology or blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. The blockchain technology is extremely valuable. Hasn't really been deployed to date only because it's computationally slow right now. That will change. I think my view personally, and I'm not going to now represent my team view. My team thinks differently. I do believe that cryptocurrencies is not the right way to go. Maybe I'll call it snake oil if you want me to call it that. I don't believe it as it because I want the U.S. government to stand behind my money, not some random collection of machines. I think there will be more regulation on crypto for sure, maybe following the China model. Time will tell. Certainly, we have a lot of debate inside Next. As I said, my opinion is really my opinion, not our our fund opinion, because our fund people do believe, a number of people believe, perhaps correctly, that this could be an important currency as opposed to fiat currencies we have today.
A good point. I think the other thing you raised was, the blockchain part of crypto seems like it's going to take off and has tremendous potential. Sudhir, any take on that?
No, I would agree with Naren. I think totally. We have to divide into two. Blockchain. We have seen companies in the tracing space, a lot of other space, which I believe will grow. It's not a tsunami right now. I think we've invested in a couple of them so far, and we will watch and we will make sure that we are there as and when those companies emerge from the country. And those companies tend to be global in nature. Again, as far as cryptocurrency is concerned, anything, not just cryptocurrency, anything which has a heavy regulation around it, we as investors are very careful and very cautious.
Good point. I think that brings us to the end of our 30-minute session. It's been fantastic having you guys. Any final thoughts, Naren and Sudhir, before we take off?
I would maybe I'll add to the thing. It's good discussion, MR. Good discussion, Sudhir. We are generally in agreement across the board. My basic request to the government is we have a tremendous entrepreneurial energy in the country. Help the entrepreneurs succeed. They will do a lot of things wrong. We will do a lot of things wrong. But I can, if I can quote, not quite accurately, Tocqueville, who said, in America, people try all kinds of things. Most things fail and some succeed, but the country comes out ahead. India will come out ahead through these million experiments that are being done in the startup ecosystem. Trust us, we will move the country forward. And we will have the maximum impact on the bottom 10%.
Thank you. And Sudhir, your final words?
Yeah, so I think government is starting to realize that new economy companies are game changers in building a new India. And I mean, our companies are today valued at 0.4% of India's GDP together. Our companies have changed the lifestyle of and income levels of 242,000 SMEs, over 2 million farmers. We are not an impact fund. We are a fund which believes in financial and outsized financial returns year by year to our investors, but changing the game as far as India is concerned. I think India is a huge opportunity. While there is a tax differential for Indian capital vis-a-vis global capital or Indian capital private vis-a-vis public markets, I think the opportunity still is very, very high. Indian returns broadly on cash returns have beaten public markets in India as well as in the international market by far, and that's a very big thing. I would encourage at this moment to, at best, have international capital look very, very seriously for the long term. There are many, many fence sitters in large pools of capital. I think it's a great opportunity if you look at India for a 10-year cycle or a 15-year cycle. And we have started a program called the Chirate Midas program, which encourages global investors. Purely, this is not fund, global investors. What is happening in India? We've already done this in Japan. We've already done this in Korea. We're going to do this in US. And we are finding enormous traction in that space. So I think it's a great opportunity where global investors can look at India giving top 10 to top 25 percentile returns. There is no question about it.
Thank you. On that note, on behalf of our viewers and Think India, I want to thank Naren Gupta with Nexus and Sudhir Sethi with Shirate. Check out their websites. They've got a great portfolio of companies as well. And I want to turn it back to our host. Thank you so much.